Hey, everybody. Welcome to our weekly Ecosystem Office Hours call. This is your host, Jinx, and I am joined, as always, by the best and brightest in the Pocket ecosystem. And a special shout out to our PGAT teams joining us today. We'll be seeing a lot more from them as time progresses. I'm going to cover the foundation updates today because we've got people both out and sick. In general, PGAT is off and running. The teams are all getting set up in their environments and showing up in the various channels where we'll be coordinating things. If you see people with the PGAT tag asking for questions and asking for help in those channels, please make a special concerted effort to give them a hand and welcome them into the ecosystem. We are super happy for them to be here. Also, not on the call right now due to a doctor appointment, but Jeff at Quantum Spider, or Q Spider in the DMs, will be helping to set up some specific services as needed within Shannon for the PGAT program. So you are welcome to tag Jeff, or actually at Q Spider, in the PGAT channel if you have any specific support that you need from a services perspective. And what was the other thing? Oh, migration working group. We're starting to get to a point where we're ready to formalize a little bit. I'm working on the administrative plan, which is the partner with Grove's operational and technical migration plans to sort of note all of the things that are required to be done along with that execution. For example, coordinating with all the node runners, coordinating with exchanges, coordinating with gateways, making sure that we're all set from the snapshot and our part of the technical migration is done. So all of those things. We will be coordinating and working on all of that in the migration working channel in the Discord. And we'll also have our third-party engineering support like Raid Guild in there as well for the bridge updates and such that have to be done. And I think that's everything else. Oh, I am meeting with the oversight committee for the rewards pools that were voted in on PIP 39, so we can start to develop a structure for that in advance. We want to make sure that we are closely working together and that we have essentially an expected allocation of rewards when that time comes. So I want to make sure that we're working tightly with them over the course of the remainder of the Shannon migration or Shannon upgrade process. And that is all for our foundation updates right now. Any questions about that? Beautiful. Well, in that case, I'll hand it over to Fred for our gateway and protocol updates.
Thank you, Jinx. All right, I'm going to stream down the list here, starting with Shannon. We talked a little bit about last week our upgrade to Alpha Testnet, but the Beta Testnet upgrade has rolled out seamlessly, which is awesome. We are very confident that Shannon now surpasses Morse in terms of processing capability and scalability. We saw our block verification time with the latest update reduce from 5 hours to 1 minute for the equivalence claims and proofs. So we are very pleased with the progress that we're making there on scalability. We are also continuously load testing, and we are going to continue to do so because it's not good enough to just be Morse again. It's got to be better. It's got to be faster. It's got to go further. So we will continue on that front. Some of that includes some optimization to the relay miner and various enhancements to the observability stack so that we can understand where the bottlenecks are and how we can bulldoze them and increase the scalability of the new chain. Moving on to Path. We are partnering very closely right now with Liquify on some of the feedback that they've had in using Path and using Path live on Pocket. They've identified some issues with the existing QoS modules that we are working very diligently on, and we hope to clear those out of the way by the end of this week. In addition, we are kicking off an initiative around the authentication and routing and the just kind of we'll call it the networking stack and infrastructure around Path. We're very vigorously experimenting with Envoy Gateway currently. So we'll bring back some findings on that, but that seems like that's a very well adopted open source tool, and we want to integrate it into the path stack to make it very easy for folks to handle things like routing and services and all that fun stuff that comes with running a gateway. So more to come on that, and we do have some infrastructure architecture meetings scheduled in the near future to get this off the ground. And this will also pave the way for us to pivot from sending traffic to the portal, or from the portal to Path, which is an exciting movement. Lastly, on Path WebSockets, we are moving very, very fast on this as well. We're trying to make progress as one of our very large existing customers who wants to deepen that relationship has put their flag down and said that this is a core feature. But once we have that feature, it should unblock that relationship and hopefully push forward a large amounts of relays with a large partner. I can't say any more on that, but I'll leave the speculation to the community. Moving forward, just general portal updates. Last week we did add Barachain. I do want to shout out to Q Spider Jeff. Thanks for coming in at the 11th hour and dealing with the typical crypto ecosystem things that happen, like having a new chain where no one knows the chain ID on Ethereum. So thanks to Jeff for standing up Barachain really quickly, and we were live within 24 hours of the airdrop. We've seen some good traffic there. We're excited to have it live on Pocket. We're also working with the Arbitrum RPC Marketplace, or the ADPC, the Arbitrum DAO, to have both Grove and Pocket listed as possible vendors. And I would encourage other gateways who may be interested in this initiative to take part in it. If you're interested, just ping me and I'll send you the link to the Telegram. You can get involved and fill out an application. I'm pretty sure applications close at the end of this month, and then they'll be going through future. It basically unlocks a future RFP pipeline where you might be selected as a Arbitrum RPC provider. Other things just on the portal, I just want to say that we have been having some stability issues with the portal. The portal as we know it today is a product that has been in maintenance mode for almost a year. And by maintenance mode, it's like, okay, kick the containers, try to keep it alive. And it's really starting to kind of fall apart at the seams. That's why we're full steam ahead on Path. And we also don't have any staff at Grove that are taking care of the portal right now. So if there are fluctuations in relays, things like that, just know that we're doing our absolute best to hold it together with gum, toothpicks, duct tape. Yeah, there might be some ups and downs as we kind of close out and we pivot over to Path, where everything should be rock steady and we're really taking good care of it. That is all the updates from the Grove side on Shannon, Path, and the portal. Thank you so much, Jinx, and look forward to some questions or comments.
I love the phrase vigorously experimenting. That's the kind of thing I like to hear. Question in the chat: is this WebSocket support for the gateway server itself, or WebSocket support for blockchain nodes over Pocket Network?
That's a great question. It would be WebSocket support on Shannon specifically. We've already got a proof of concept working for WebSockets on Path. That would be completely on chain, but we are working on both. We want to bring the WebSocket support on Path to production grade, and then we need to implement and enhance the WebSocket support on Shannon. I will say that, and I want to be very clear, Morse will not ever support WebSockets, at least unless someone in the community wants to do it. We have no plans to do that.
Beautiful, and I know that consensus breaking chains and or changes and such are all completely moratoriumed at this point. As far as Morse goes, it's full speed ahead to Shannon, and I'm sure we'll all be excited when Portal is the default use case across our biggest gateways. And I'm sure that some of these announcements might cause some ripples of excitement through the community as they come out. I did know that Alex Cryptocorn has talked a little bit about a significant load testing day as a coordinated event, which he has dubbed 10 Billy Day. Is that something that you guys think that we could reasonably work into our launch runway?
When it comes to Shannon, I would say we could reasonably try this. I don't think that there's anything really. If you want to, you could reasonably spin this up yourself and give it a shot and see how the chain responds. Anyone is welcome to participate in Shannon beta. I am less confident, and I wouldn't encourage it if you were going to plan to do it on the portal, because we know that we'll fall over.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
We mean on Shannon testnet as a coordinated load test day.
Sure. I mean, if you guys want to go for it, go for it. There's nothing stopping you. I don't know that we'll be coordinating any such efforts because we're really just focused on getting the chain out the door and getting it live.
100%. Okay, cool. If there's no concerns on your side, then we will carry that over on our side. Any other questions from the protocol updates or gateway updates, as the case may be?
I'll poke a question out there. As I was reminded this morning by my own professional supervisor that we are midway through Q1. I mean, Fred, at what point do you think we'll get closer to finding some finalized dates regarding the Shannon rollout, and upgrade? I understand that there's some legal questions that need to be answered there, but from a development standpoint, are you close to having a timeline?
I will say that we are the development process, especially when we're talking about a product that has to be as scalable as a blockchain or Path. We'll make an announcement sometime in Q2. We've committed to delivering in Q2. So as we get closer and we have a hard date, we'll be sure to share it. I don't have one at this time, though.
Noted. Crypto asks, are the fee markets changing with Shannon given its greater capacity for scale?
I don't know the answer to that. There's a whole tokenomics document out there that's still a work in progress on Shannon.
Yeah, it's from an end user facing perspective, that's going to be handled on a gateway by gateway basis, because they are obviously all going to set their own prices for their services. From a burn perspective, I would expect there to be some sort of adjustment on the burn relay based on volume through the network, and that's something that's already in the tokenomics models as a parameter. So that's, I think we can get a harder answer on that as we get closer. Taraba said Shannon will be delayed till end of Q2. It's funny how an answer of we will give a hard date when it comes and when it's ready becomes end of Q2. Nope, that's your speculation. We will have a date announced when it's closer to that, and we expect it to be delivered in Q2.
I call that FUD.
Yeah. In the Pocket News X post about the investment thesis, they're saying that Shannon will be competing with blockchain oracles such as Chainlink. That's something that I've also been wondering. Will the extensions of use cases thanks to Shannon put us in direct competition with Chainlink, knowing they have also been broadening their use cases? That's a pretty wide ecosystem-based question. I think opinions may vary on that significantly. Chainlink has a few different use cases, which I don't expect to be direct competitors to Pocket. They do things like timed contract execution and stuff along that line. In other places where there is data lookup functions like oracles, there certainly will be some crossover with what Pocket is doing. What I would like to see between ecosystems is some collaboration on how we can share some of this functionality across both. It would be awesome to see Chainlink using Pocket Network for some of its data lookup processes and going harder on the use cases where it really is kind of specific, like timed contract execution and other sorts of stored executions of that nature. So short answer, maybe yes. Longer answer, greater conversation, and I'd love to be part of that conversation if anyone from Chainlink's listening.
I'll just throw out a comment that folks used to say similar things about us in the graph. I don't know that we're in competition. I think that we actually should be in cooperation. Imagine a world where someone is using Chainlink oracles because Chainlink is listed as a service on Pocket Network. Now that is the holy grail. Or someone is accessing a graph subgraph by using RPC calls on Pocket Network out to the graph. Like those are more exciting use cases. I never want to say direct competition because Pocket is very, very broad and Chainlink is broadening, but it also has specific use cases, much like the graph does.
Yeah, and it's we've talked about these kinds of use cases multiple times, and a lot of times, I think from an end user or from a retail perspective, the nuances of where specific services execute well can be lost. If you are not a deep infra or deep engineer nerd, saying that something is a view versus a model versus a controller versus supporting infra probably doesn't mean much. Graph is specifically good at creating accumulated or coalesced views from supported data sources and then publishing those views as an accessible object, meaning that you can take the information that you're pulling into Graph and turn it into one API, my Graph API, and then call data segments through my Graph API that touch each of those accumulated data sources. And that's a very nifty and useful thing. And it's also what we would call an opinionated object in that it has a specific structure at execution, and you are only going to go through that structure. And this is not at all what Pocket does. Pocket is the access layer, the connection layer, transport layer, more or less, in the OSI model. So it is not opinionated about the data that it serves. It doesn't do transforms or anything else. Apps and gateways on Pocket may do any number of transformations with that data, but that's not Pocket's business. We don't care what you do. You can talk about anything on the phone. We're just the phone lines. Okay. Other questions? I guess we're past our major updates, so the floor is y'all's. This is the ecosystem. Feel free to jump in as you like.
Sorry, I didn't catch the tentative release date for Shannon. What was it again, or is that to be decided?
Yeah, that Fred said they have committed to it being released in Q2, and
Got it.
that they're going to publish a date as they get closer on and have a good sense of what that hard execution date is going to be.
Okay, thank you.
Taraba asked, Pocket News shared a thesis from some larger investor group. How is Pocket News knowing this and others haven't said a word about it? I mean, there are lots of theses that are published all the time from investor groups, and anyone is certainly welcome and encouraged to go read them and analyze them and publish them as you like. Pocket News is not the foundation or the gateway, so we don't really care about that either. Is Grove limiting their customer growth out of concerns the portal would be unable to support additional traffic? Ooh, that's an interesting question.
That's an interesting question. No is the answer, but I'll also say that Grove has not actively sold its services in 8 months. So we are not actively selling. I mean, there's a few things that we're doing more on the new chains deal side. We're not actively marketing or selling any relays. Anything that comes to us it's a SaaS. It's people are signing up and putting down their credit card. That's it.
My favorite kind of transaction. Kojak asks, any news about the long-term staking plan details? I do not have an update on that yet, and that's I completely apologize. Honestly, I really forgot about getting the updates on that, so that's entirely on me. I will drop a note now into my chat with the foundation team. Okay. And I will get an update for that forthwith. Sorry about that. Okay. Where is Kalsu? Speaking of which, one second. Kalsu was actually going to give a presentation today on the pro forma. Oh, yeah. Sorry, Zatar. Always an attorney, sir. So yes, clarification around meeting to discuss that structure and how we can work together with the oversight committee. So yeah, Kansu let me know that she was sick this morning. She intended to join the call. I'm hoping that she might still be able to, so we could talk about the pro forma and the structure of the pro forma, so that folks could read it correctly versus reading their own interpretations into it and creating silly wild ass falsehoods essentially about how the foundation budget is used. So let's start with the question that Taraba asked. What is the 100K month payment to Truth Cartel cover starting from April? So first of all, the way a pro forma works is not this is how much money we spent. That's in the future, clearly. So these are projections of an estimation of strategy of where we would like to allocate a foundation budget according to our operational needs. In the Truth Cartel line item starting in April, our expectation is that as Shannon gets closer, we are going to want to go harder on publicity and press releases and all sorts of supporting marketing around that, because it's very important that the world at large hears about what's been accomplished. The visibility of POKT in the ecosystem has been a constant complaint for the years that I've been involved in here, and so we intend to remedy that. However, media being what it is, it's not free to pay, it's pay to play, and that's how it goes. So there is an expectation that we are going to have to spend additional money for press releases. I can say, for instance, that Cointelegraph charges $10,000 per article. So if you want to see POKT multiple times in Cointelegraph, that's $10,000 per time, unless we buy them in bulk, in which case they are willing to discount down to around $8,500. That's how crypto media is. So for everyone who has said for years that POKT's foundation has not done a great job of marketing, and why don't we ever see marketing, and why don't we ever hear the marketing? Well, guess what, buddy? This is the marketing, and it's expensive. So that's where those projections come from. Now, in the pro forma, those amounts in the columns are caps. They are not an actual expectation of hard spend. They are a max amount that will be allocated for that particular cost center. If anyone here is familiar with Kansu at all, one of the things that you know about her is she is a meat cleaver with the budget, and she is always looking for where to spend or where to cut, where to negotiate, where to drop line items, where to reorganize how expenses are put together in order to drop down the budget. And literally in this last month since I've started as head of operations, our annual budget in reality is already down around $200,000 from where it was. One of the cuts that we made a decision to make, for instance, was in our Masari subscription. That has been held up for a long time as a sign of being a legitimate project to be listed in their index and to have analysis done there. But the reality is, from the ecosystem perspective, $100,000 a year simply isn't worth the value that's being returned to the protocol. And we are not married to vanity metrics that don't actually have an impact on total network value. And the Masari listing, to be perfectly clear, was a vanity metric, all things considered. It put us in front of investors who use Masari for sure, but that has not translated into any meaningful addition to the network value. So, so when you're looking at the pro forma, the last month, January, for instance, is the actual reconciled month that shows the hard expenses. When we have an underage of the projected expense for that particular column, Kansu generally moves the balance of that underage over into the current month column, since that is over from a projection perspective, until such time as we have formally reduced our projections around that. For instance, if we have $20,000 budgeted for some monthly infra expense, and we start to see that it's only going to cost us $10,000 a month, then in the current month, we would show $30,000 for that expense while we evaluated if that cost was consistently lower, at which point in time we would lower the projection to account for that lowered cost and make sure that it was reconciled from there. So that's an understanding, a high-level understanding of how all of that works. Now, one of the questions that I think is asked quite a bit, and especially one of the things that was, sort of held up as wastefulness, is the amount of token spend that the foundation was going to be doing. We did achieve that target in January, but at the end of the month, as we started to see that secondary price downturn, the amount of pockets sold by the foundation per day was reduced significantly, down to 10K a day, which put our monthly projection at 310,000. And then as it dropped below 2 cents, the foundation stopped selling entirely to help not contribute to that underside and to wait to see a recovery from the drop that we saw across the market at large. The services that we are working with for that management and distribution are staying very tight on top of that, and we are making sure that we are a minuscule portion of daily volume and trading. And that's been a commitment since the beginning, and that's a commitment that we're honoring. You mentioned you want a ton of publicity and transparency surrounding PGAT. What kind of content can we expect? We've already seen this month that we had our press releases announcing the launch of PGAT, along with some supporting social media stuff and long-form articles and such that were created. So that is a good example of the type of content. But it's important to me that people in the ecosystem not just know that PGAT exists, but also who the individual teams are, what kind of products they're building, what their vision is for decentralized services and decentralized AI, and how they see Pocket as being a key part of that of the smaller ecosystems that they're building around individual product use cases. So you can expect there to be full team profiles and interviews. You can expect to see some ongoing content from them or updates from them that we're going to be supporting and putting out there in social media form. We will be engaging with all of those teams on X, so you are encouraged to follow them there and engage with them there as well. Some of them I've seen have brand new X accounts for that product, so they could probably use some early followers in the mix. And we'll go from there. That'll be consistent. Taraba asks, will we have blockchain transaction IDs of funds being spent by PNF transparently? No, not everything is done with blockchain transactions. Some things are done with USD, some things are done with a mix. There are all sorts of things. And the pro forma and P&L data is out there and reconciled on a regular basis. So trying to break down every single transaction, I think, is probably more than we'll commit to at this point. When we don't have an accounting department, we have a person. Will we support that someday in the future? Sure, I'm not against that. I don't know what the limitations around that would be, but the goal is transparency. So anything that can help provide that is welcome. Leroy Jenkins says somebody is not muted. So if you're not muted, please mute yourself unless you're about to talk. Stefan, easy to state. Looks like you're off muted. Maybe that was it.
No, it wasn't me.
Okay. Leroy Jenkins says, just curious what hurdles are left to be considered for a tier 1 listing. That's a great question. So this is a big focus right now for the foundation, is making sure that we have access to tier 1 capital through a tier 1 listing. Until we can support the kind of volume that occurs in tier 1s, we are forever going to be wrestling in a smaller capital market without the kind of volume that can help stabilize market values and activity, reduce volatility. So the biggest things that we saw from Coinbase, and the reason why we're targeting a Coinbase listing, is because of the fact that they are very clear around what's required, or at least they say they're being very clear around what's required. And what is required is a strong operational organization with clear everything. The team is doxed and known, the financials are in place, reporting is frequent, etc., and stability within the economic ecosystem. And that means, a predictable rate of inflation, predictable rate of supply, all the rest of those things. During the course of, the last year, there have been some pretty significant variances in the network emissions parameters and such. That is not what I would call a stable and predictable long-term supply. There was target information published out there by Mike, so that is out there, and the targets around that are clear. And when we reach that, which I believe is next week, we're going to be dropping to the previous network parameters on emissions. But it's not enough to just say, hey, we've changed this. We've also got to be consistent with it. And we have to have an enforceable commitment to that being a stable environment. So it's certainly not going to happen over the course of the next couple of weeks. We need to be able to show this for a while, and we need to be able to show that we have processes and oversight in place to help keep that stable. And that's a lot of that is functionally what I'm working on building out right now, along with Kansu and the rest of the foundation team. To conclude, as price of POKT went down a lot, how will PNF finance the expenses if it will not sell coins to avoid adding extra pressure to the market? Where will the money come from? PNF will still sell tokens to support the budget. It just has to happen in a much more restricted way, and we're expecting that we'll have enough variance in the marketplace, to support shifting in strategy around those things. Basically, hoping a number goes up, same as everybody else. If we go through an extended downturn and we are not seeing improvement in the total network value, then harder questions have to be asked. We have to think about, what are things that we will just absolutely die without, and do the same thing that every small or limited budget startup does when finances are tight. And that's one of the issues with the foundation in the past, is it was run like a foundation. And most people, when you think of foundations, you think, oh, it's a nonprofit. And often you think about endowments and nonprofit donations and all the rest of those things. But Pocket's Foundation fundamentally has to be run like a business. It needs to be lean, it needs to be organizationally efficient, and it needs to be very, very cost sensitive. If we look at the history of the foundation over the last 3 years, we see that expenses were just extraordinary, and common cost controls that could have reduced that, which would have made our treasury significantly stronger than right now, were just simply never used. There was never real engineering oversight of grants and such that were being put out there. There was a broad sort of mindset that, it's the ecosystem can measure the impact, and we'll, if they're in agreement with that, then we'll do that. And so popular teams within the ecosystem would come out and ask for extraordinary sums of money, and the foundation and the ecosystem are like, yeah, we like these guys, so let's do it. And how much money has walked out the door from that laissez-faire perspective? I am, as someone who is a member of the DAO votership, I have like yelled about this for years about how much was being spent by the DAO, approved by DAO voters. For work that no one in the DAO was effectively providing significant engineering oversight for. And looking at how we manage vendors in the ecosystem by negotiating costs up front using common pricing controls like an RFP program and things along that line would have saved the DAO a shit ton of money if they had been in place along the way. I have a lot of respect for everyone who sat in the chair at the foundation and the pressure that they've had to do a job to the best of their ability. But this is one of those places where that has just never been managed well, and it's cost the ecosystem dearly. So these things are changing, period. It's not going to be a wallet that can just be drawn from. We're not going to have these proposals go out that are asking for, $3 million. It's ridiculous. So the foundation's going to be managed as a business and as operationally and financially efficient as possible. How much is being sold in USD right now on a monthly base? 0 right this second, because we've paused the selling while we watch to see what the market does. Kojak asked, could new VC money be used to get new money instead of selling more tokens? Not for the foundation, because the foundation doesn't have anything from a VC perspective. It's not an investable organization. Things like Grove and such within the ecosystem are capable of raising investment capital. But aside from investors literally just buying Pocket on the open market, there's no way for them to engage with the foundation. Investors and thesis that Pocket News shared stated that Pocket should attract high-profile investors. Will Grove start fundraiser once again to attract tier 1 VCs? I think those are two different things there that you're kind of conflating. So let's put aside Grove for a second, because that's the easy one. Whether or not Grove starts a fundraiser probably has no direct connection to that tier 1 thesis, although to that thesis. Although I'm sure that it's something that they would, certainly mention in their pitch deck if they were doing that, because it speaks to the strength of the ecosystem. What's being talked about in the thesis is high worth or high value investors, high profile investors, specifically investing in Pocket. And in particular, that is more or less describing taking a position in Pocket to speculate on the value of the token. So that is 100% just their ability to come into the market and participate in those markets in the same way that everyone else can, but of course at size, because their size is not my size and potentially not your size either. Tim asked, to not really beat around the bush, obviously the partnership with Ripple has the potential to be catalyst for the price, adoption, exposure, etc. I know it's really a Grove deal. Is PNF involved in conversations with them? Is there any way to leverage that partnership for a mutually beneficial marketing push? I know they are huge and take forever to do anything, but this should be explored. It already is explored on a regular basis. The partnership that they have for the services that are being provided are with Grove. So fundamentally, Grove drives conversations with their partnerships. Pocket is mentioned almost every single time that conversation occurs, and we have talked about other mechanisms by which content or social posts from Pocket itself could be the vehicle for announcing improvements or expansions of Grove services. So we are certainly looking for how we can collaborate more effectively on that. But ultimately, that is the decision of Grove's customer on how they want to engage in Grove's ecosystem from their perspective.
Yeah, and I'll also comment that the attraction to working with us is because of Pocket. Ripple and the XRP Ledger folks are very eager to pursue decentralization on projects. So They're very, very, very keen about this. That's why we were selected for the XRPL EVM DevNet, and we're going to continue to be partnered with them as XRPL EVM grows up to mainnet. But they are very, very attracted to the opportunity that Pocket presents in terms of decentralization and scalability.
So short answer, yes. Long answer, the actual execution of that will take a little bit of work to make sure that we are following their communications guidelines and that we are operating and executing within the parameters that they set for how those communications occur. Do they or any other customers of the gateways have any concerns regarding the priced health of the foundation, or is that too disconnected? It's really disconnected. Grove is a service. Grove is built on top of the Pocket network, so there's a connection there. But ultimately, Grove is running not just RPCs, but also other supporting services for their customer, and that's all entirely a step away from us. An opinion on XRP and decentralization. Okay. Other questions? On what is Grove spending their money now that PNF is covering 100% of Shannon development costs as per pro forma?
Well,
Grove's a private organization. I don't think they're publishing their budget. Fred, do you feel like answering that?
We have in the past actually published our entire budget and pro forma. It didn't do us any good. To answer the question, which again I find this a little bit with a negative connotation it's coming across. I will say that our funds are spent on providing our software as a service and also paying our staff. That's really where it goes. And then there's the R&D efforts, which the foundation is graciously helping us with.
Mm-hmm. And also for anyone who's been eyeballing the infrastructure costs and all the rest of that on PNF's pro forma in relation to Grove, Grove is an administrator of those infra services, but those services are provided by the foundation. So Grove presents invoices to us from their service providers that we then pay. Arts McLaren lease.
I'm still waiting on mine to come through. So
yeah. I heard that the credit approval process is the real killer.
Yeah.
Coming up on the top of the hour, but I see we still got a little typing, so we'll hang tough through the end.
I'll throw out while our friend is typing here. If you have not seen part 2 of our 3-part series on Twitter, I'm going to paste that in the chat. Go ahead and check it out. This one talks about Shannon and hosting an LLM on Shannon, specifically DeepSeek. So please give that some eyeballs, give it some likes, some retweets, all the above.
Hell yeah, I am retweeting it literally right now. And gotta say, agree with Sai there. These technical deep dives have been awesome. When we talk about content being generated within the ecosystem, our actual ecosystem participants are often responsible for some of the best content that comes out. Pocket Scan is another one that comes to mind, an organization that's put out quite a bit. And there's a few other folks who have also done a great job in creating technical guides and deep dives and all that sort of thing. So I would love and expect to see as much as possible more of that coming from ecosystem. One of our biggest focuses is growing active ecosystem participation. So that's one of the ways that you can be helpful and maybe even earn a little extra pocket as the case may be. But yes, please check out those technical deep dives that Grove's put out because they are very solid. Taraba asks, is Ramiro still working on AI use case? I'm not sure if use case is actually the right word in particular there, but yes, Ramiro and the Pocket Scan team have been are literally the only ones I think right now prior to PGAT who have run LLM models on Shannon. Short answer, yes. Long answer, he's not going to be alone for long. All right, final questions as we come through top of the hour, so type quick. Have PNF done a market landscape research recently? Will Pocket have notable competitors with Shannon? Actually, this is something that we talk about like all the time. What a great final question. Yes, 100% yes. We are constantly talking about the market landscape, and in particular because there are a number of folks who are considered competitors, right? And that's been a constant question. How is Pocket different from Lava? How is Pocket different from Hopper? How is Pocket different from Graph, Omnia, and some of these other networks and protocols that are out there? And there are some very, very clear differences. From a business perspective, we've been around for a long time, and first mover advantage counts for a lot. It gets you some inertia. That being said, you can't rest on your laurels, and you got to keep it moving. And so we really have to be focused on what our core differentiators are, what we describe as our core value proposition and our moat from a venture capital perspective. And those are pretty clear. One, the Shannon upgrade is significant. Literally nothing like it exists from a technical perspective. It has a number of features built in that really speak to our core model. Relay mining in particular is something that doesn't exist anywhere else to my knowledge. That is a way for data providers on the protocol to be incentivized directly for offering their data for use. And that's the things that unlocks are just like limitless. But the other thing is Pocket, especially in Shannon Pocket specifically, because it moves away from an RPC perspective into an open data perspective, it really does become the phone lines. When we talk about, we can say Lava, for instance. Lava's the phone company. They do a very good job of managing pools that allow people to incentivize usage in their native tokens, and they do a lot of translation work between all those things. They offer up some marketplaces around services. That's awesome. They do that really well. But they still have to use the phone lines, and much like in the non-digital world, phone lines are run by independent organizations who often have interconnecting agreements with other infra providers, etc. It's just a lower layer on the total chain. And when we look at open data versus open RPC, we see that this is so much broader than just the ability to support RPC calls. Any form of JSON type data transmission can theoretically be run on Pocket and served up and incentivized to be served up. AI is obviously a big use case of that, and being able to support agentic marketplaces in the AI ecosystem with a back-end communications layer that doesn't fail at all. But there are, to sort of answer some of the follow-on questions, do you have Web 2 targets that we're going to try to work with after Shannon release? Not a name right now, but there are definitely industry segments that I think are important. And part of that is like scientific and clinical research. A lot of this data that we currently see that's behind the walled gardens of paid journals and things along that line. There are a lot of researchers who rely on the incentives that they receive from journals to or grants that are connected to journals and such to make sure that they can continue operating. And if we have an open data model that is incentivized to share that data, we change the landscape of how that data moves, how it's accessed, how it's shared. So the vision of open data, unstoppable open data with Shannon is significantly bigger than can I look up my wallet balance on Ethereum, Tim said update on Pocket for Dummies. Yeah, well, it's an ongoing initiative. I don't I don't have any deliverables on that. I'm mostly just working with other folks on ongoing language improvements to make that more accessible. So don't think of that as a project. Think of that as an overlying mission that we're working on constantly. Yeah, not a specific guide. Pocket for Dummies is an internal language guide about how we speak about the network. We're trying to, as much as possible, move away from requiring an engineering degree to understand what Pocket is all about. Tarab asks, what are some rough estimations of paid traffic coming from non-blockchain projects in comparison to existing RPC blockchain space, let's say 6 months from this moment? Specific adoption estimates are, that's I can rectally retrieve those as good as anyone else, but they will be worth exactly the source material. So if we want to look at TAM and addressable and the addressable market, Michael has published in his updates a few times what the evolving TAM is. The gap between established open data usage and total openly, or the ability to have open data in that marketplace, is significant. I mean, easily 20, 30, maybe even as high as 80x of what is in place now. So rough estimates, but realistic estimations. That question just sort of like ignores how Pocket works. Not shitting on your head for that or anything, but those estimations would be driven by the actual app and gateway developers, not by the protocol itself. Pocket serves its apps. So the traffic is driven by its apps, and they would be the ones to estimate what their traffic could be. If we're talking about what's possible, 10 billion a day or better, baby. That's what we're doing. That's what we're looking for. Michael in his original paper was talking about trillions of daily relays. So, if you want some pipe dream numbers, there are those. That's funny. Okay, well then you guys are talking about something else, because I have an internal doc, and that's what Tim was talking about, I believe. I am not familiar with what y'all are working on there, but interesting to see that we are approaching it from the same direction. I would probably want to jump in there and take a look at what you're doing to make sure that you're aligned with what we are doing, so we're not talking at cross purposes. So please DM me, reach out. All right, we are at the top of the hour, and I know that some people have a hard stop, so we're going to end it here. Thank you, as always, for attending, and keep in mind, this is the place to get direct from the horse's mouth answers on technical and operational stuff across the entire ecosystem. So always glad you're here, and I encourage you to be here every week. Thanks, y'all.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Jinx.